Phil. How you going, mate?
Good. You caught me with my pants down, literally.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, I thought you'd like to know.
How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Lovely to talk to you again.
Yeah.
I had a chat with your old partner in crime, Mr. Barry Harvey, on Saturday, and he was so excited about this Chain Live being released, mate.
Oh yeah. I bet he has different memories of it to what I do.
Please elaborate.
Oh, no, it's funny. Quite often over the years, we've noticed that because everyone was so stoned in those days, that someone will say, "Oh, I remember this, and I remember that," and the other one will say, "Fuck, I don't remember that." I remember this. It'd be completely different.
Well, one of the great things I've read with the re-release of this album is that it cost $38 to make, but that was only half of your, I think, weekly marijuana budget. Is that how it goes?
I think it was. I thought it was $33.
Okay.
And yes, we spent $60 on buying 2 bags of dope.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we actually spent twice as much on drugs as what we did on the recording. So I reckon that's pretty funny.
That is funny, but it stands the test of time. It's a marvellous document.
Yeah. Well, the thing was that we're on air, are we?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. The thing was that it was actually, and this is the strangest thing about it. It was actually recorded the day after we officially broke up. So we broke up on the sort of Saturday night officially because Glyn wanted to go off to England, and Warren was joining Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs, and Big Goose, Little Goose and myself decided to stay on as a trio, and we went off to Brisbane, which eventually led to Matt Taylor joining us as a vocalist harmonica, and the rest of that's history, So, we decided to record the band for posterity, and so yeah, armed with 3 little Japanese mic mixers, battery-driven mic mixers, and a bunch of Shure microphones, PA microphones, and what was it called? What was it? Bloody a 2-track recorder. I can't remember the name of it, for God's sake. Anyway, we set up we didn't set up on the stage. We set up in the corner of the club, in a little corner. We cleared the chairs and tables out and set up in a corner, figuring we'd get a bit more intimate, better sort of sound, and just sort of basically played and got stoned.
As you said, it is a wonderful document of that period of the band, and that period of the band is not so well known. The band, of course, went on to do such popular things after that, but it's sort of a lost part of history.
Interestingly enough, that band was actually very well known around Melbourne and Sydney. We weren't that well known in a broader sense, although South Australia, we made quite a sort of name for ourselves there. But yeah, in the sort of anywhere between Melbourne and Sydney and Adelaide, yeah, we were really quite well known, and we were a real sort of popular cult band in Melbourne. But then, of course, once we had Black and Blue, it just went all over the country, and we became sort of, I wouldn't say household names, but we became better known anyway.
Well, it certainly did become household names. But I was really interested in how you and Glyn Mason worked together, and it did work very well. You're both very different players.
Oh yeah. Well, the silliest thing about this is a really, really bizarre turn. The reason that Warren Morgan came up with the idea of getting Glyn in the band, and quite frankly, I wasn't that incredibly keen about it because, I was sort of the front man of the band in a way. So it almost implied that I was getting sort of shifted aside a bit. But, as Pig put it, the guy's such a great vocalist, because as well as being a great guitar player, Glyn is a fabulous vocalist.
He is indeed.
And of course, he works today with Sam MC, and they call themselves the Pardoners.
And still making wonderful music they are.
Yeah, they're fantastic, man. And Sam C's a ridiculous guitar player. He's so good. But anyway, so, you know, the whole idea of getting Glyn into the band was to do vocals. And so what happened once Glyn joined the band? We learnt all these long instrumentals, and Glyn hardly ever sang. It was really silly. And I remember there's a tape of us doing Dustma Blues. I've got it actually. It's never been released, but it's not in great condition. But it's like one verse or two verses of going to wake up in the morning, I believe, at Dustma Blues, and then it's like two solos from Glyn, two solos from Warren, two solos from me, another verse, then two solos from Warren, two solos from me, two solos from Glyn, then another verse, and then two more of each. It just goes on indeterminately, and it's nearly all instrumental, you know. That was just the way it sort of went in those days, you know.
It would have taken up the whole side of an LP in those days.
Just about, yeah.
And you, when I was talking to Barry on the other day, one of the things that really strikes me about this recording is how well Barry Sullivan and he worked together. Barry Sullivan, may rest in peace, but what a great bass player he was, mate.
Oh, well, look, you know, Little Goose was also great too. He was far less jazz inclined in that band because it was a really disciplined band, and Big Goose really kept him in line in that regard because Little Goose Barry, you know, Barry Harvey, is really inclined he loves to get out there into the jazz scene, you know, into the jazz vibe, you know. And of course, when you're a rock band, that can be a bit odd at times, you know. But BG really he really held that down. BG, without doubt, look, there's, you know, as far as electric bass players in this country is concerned, there's only two other guys. Well, there's about three guys that I can think of that really sort of sit in that ball game. One of them, the lovely Duncan Maguire, died many years ago.
Yes.
And then you've got Tim Partridge, who has sort of started to play again. He went into teaching and sort of college stuff for quite a long time. And then, of course, the infamous, wonderfully brilliant guy, Harry Bruce. And they were all contemporaries of BG. Mm-hmm. And they were all great players. But BG really had something that just stood out above everyone else. You know, he had this tone, this beautiful tone, a beautiful concept of rhythm, and most importantly, an incredible concept of melody. He could put little melodic things in the bass parts that just no one would think of, you know. They'd really turn things around.
Yeah, I agree. He was a rock solid bass player, but there was always things that would grab your ear, and I've found that so many times listening to recordings of him.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, rock solid, real fundamental foundation bass player type scenario. But then he had this subtle side as well, and he could throw in these really sort of subtle things without losing the foundation. You know, so you'd still have your drive and your bottom end in it. You'd still have that, but there'd be these subtleties as well. Yeah, look, I've never worked with a bass player like him, quite frankly, you know. And mind you, when I'm saying that, I mean I worked with a lot of great bass players over the years, and they're all different, you know. Someone like Peter Howe is different to someone like, you know, well, I don't know, there's a lot of them. But, you know, Robbie Gapin was a different thing, you know, over the years. And the thing is that they all have their own style. It was just that BG style, what BG did really captured people. And, of course, as well as all the Change stuff did, he worked with Renee Gayer, he worked with Brian Cadd, he worked with Little River Band, he worked with just everyone, really, you know, whether it be on recording or live, you know.
Well, that was a testament to what a wonderful bass player he was indeed, that he was so in demand, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that Aztec do with these re-releases that is wonderful, they don't only put out great remasters of these classic recordings, but as with this one too, there's some lovely little gems thrown in there, like a couple of singles that I didn't even know existed, which are just wonderful blasts from the past to hear.
Yeah, well, they were done before that lineup. In fact, the lineup for Mr. Time and Show Me Home was actually Warren Morgan on keyboard, Ace Follington on drums, Murray Wilkins on bass, Claude Papish on keyboards as well, so we had two keyboard players, and me on guitar.
And Claude's passed away as well, hasn't
he? Yes, he has, yeah.
And he was a fine keyboard player. Another guy that Warren is so well known for being, the Australian keyboard player, but Claude was again just a fine keyboard player.
Yeah, well, I think probably in Claude's case, he came from New Zealand, as I think you do you?
No, do I sound like a New Zealander?
Do you?
No.
You are.
It must be my Adelaide accent, mate.
Oh, you're Adelaide, are you? No, Claude came from New Zealand and really didn't sort of work much, outside Sydney. So he wasn't really well known, but he was a fabulous player.
Well, you looked after the New Zealanders, because Glyn, of course, was from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And was it Tim Piper also in the band at that stage?
Yeah, another New Zealander.
That's right.
They originally came over from New Zealand in a trio called Bag, which I think that was the name of them, which had Claude on keyboards and foot pedals, and Tim Piper on guitar, and then Bruno Lawrence on drums. That's right.
Okay.
Remembered his name.
Because Tim was an old cohort of the one and only Mike Rudd back in New Zealand, I remember.
Yeah. No, it's all associated. I mean, there's so much New Zealand. I mean, it's stupid that we're actually two countries almost, But anyway, we won't go there.
I do find it amusing how we tend to say how much great music comes out of Australia for such a small population, but certainly back in the 60s and 70s, they were mostly New Zealanders, the likes of Mr. Boric and all those guys.
There weren't mostly, but there were a lot of them.
And as we've been speaking about, the live album is a magnificent thing and a wonderful piece of history to have come out. But you don't sit around doing nothing, Phil. What are you busy at the moment?
Well, I've just it's not quite released. It sort of isn't. It sort of isn't. I'm about to go off to Bali. My wife and I are having a month off. We've worked our asses off, so we're having a month off. And I'm supposed to have this album released, but I'm sort of holding back doing things because I got people minding our house while we were away, and I don't want them to be inundated with bloody emails and shit, people wanting CDs. So I'm sort of holding it back a bit, but I've got a new one out called Checkmate Move.
Okay.
And I guess I'll do the real push on that the end of May,
Magnificent. All right. Well,
or the end of June.
Please keep in touch. I'll be keen to have a listen and see what you're up to.
Yeah. It's interesting sort of album. It's it came together in a really piecemeal fashion. I'd been writing the songs and messing around with them, and I finally went, I've got to do something. I've got to start recording it. So I started recording it, and then I thought, I wonder what it'd be like if I whacked something, and so I used a metal music stand and played some drums on a metal music stand, and I went, I quite like the sound of that. And then I did all these sort of weird experimental things that I haven't done before, really. And I think some of it's come out really well, And then I've got there's a couple of, trademark straight blues and things. But it's an acoustic album, except for, I think there's one track that I play some electric lead on. But it's basically a very songwriter-based album. That's what I tend to do. I've always been more interested in writing a piece of music that has a substantial guitar part within it, rather than trying to be the virtuoso guitar player, you know, because there's just too many of them. And whilst I can sort of do that stuff, it gets a bit boring after a while.
Your fans still love it indeed, mate.
Oh, well, you know, you've got to do live shows, especially with Chain, you know, when we go out and play, you know, there's you know, I'm up against it every night. At some point I've got to let loose, you know. But you know, the real guts of it is to make the, as I say on my Checkmate Move album, you know, one of the things is to make the music sing. And that's what is the real key to it, you know, that whether it's an instrumental piece or a vocal piece, you want it to sing as a sort of an entity and have its own voice.
Well, you've been doing that for pretty much 40 years, Mr. Manning. So you're, I'm sure that's not going to be any different.
44, actually.
There you go.
44 years. Oh my God.
All right, mate. Well, you have a great holiday, and it's been an absolute pleasure to say hello. And folks, jump out and grab this piece of history, this Chain Live CD.
Chain
is
Live.
a magnificent thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, good on Gil. Gil, for those of you that don't know who Aztec Music is, Gil Matthews is the drummer from Sunbury Chain, and he's done very well with business and stuff over the years with his music label, Aztec Music, and other things that he does. And it's a real hobby of his. He wants to put out all this sort of lovely 60s and 70s Australian music that most people haven't heard, you know. And I give him full marks for it, you know.
But he does such a good job. The sound that he's getting from these old recordings is absolutely magnificent.
Oh, I haven't heard it myself, but I'm waiting to hear it. But I've worked with Gil in the past, and the guy's a hell of a sound engineer, you know. I know a lot of people wouldn't realise that, but he's a mind-boggling sound engineer. I mean, have a listen to most people. I know think that I'm crazy, and it's got a really unusual sound for the time. You know, it was different to anything at the time. This is Gil, you know.
But it still sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the guy's still a mind-boggling drummer.
He is indeed a very talented man.
Mind-boggling drummer. You realise that Gil Matthews is the only guy, other than Cubby, who ever played drums on the Mouseketeers.
Is that right? He did, because he did go to the States with with Max Roach and Buddy Rich when he was young, didn't he?
That's right. Max Roach and Buddy Rich. He did a tour as an Australian Wonder Boy drummer, and he appeared on the Mouseketeers.
Cool. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, he is a very interesting character indeed, as you are, Phil. And it, as always, a great pleasure to say hello, mate.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, all the best, and like I say,
all my love to everyone in Adelaide.
We look forward to seeing you back here, and look forward to a new Phil Manning CD.
Mate, I'll be back in Adelaide in July.
Cool.
Round about between the 5th and the 8th of July, I think it is, around about then, or the 7th and 10th. It's around that second weekend of July, and I'm going to be over there doing the old, what do they call it, the old Clarendon.
Oh, yes. Great place, yeah.
Which is down near my good mate Chris Finnan's place.
And very near me.
And I'll be doing a wonderful little sort of cafe restaurant up in Gawler. I can't remember its name offhand. And, of course, the good old comic club, the Semaphore Workers. And I love that gig. I really love it.
It is a good one.
It's lovely. It reminds me of the 50s or 60s or something. It's really amazing. And there may be another one as well. I'm not sure yet, Thursday night one. But, yeah, I'll be over there, and I'd love to see any people that like what I do come along.
Awesome. Look forward to it, mate. All the best. We will keep in touch, and keen to hear what the new CD is. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you in Adelaide soon.
Yeah, mate. You got my email.
I have.
You better send me an email address so I can get one to you.
Not a problem. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated.
Okay, mate.
Cheers, Phil. Bye bye.